The JCR presidency takes up quite a lot of time commitment. What other activities or societies are you involved in, and how would you go about managing your time in terms of your other commitments? Should we go left to right?
Yeah, let's go right to start with. Sure. So I'm currently involved in a couple of other things. So I already mentioned, for example, I'm the Secretary of MedSoc and I'm convening ICID. I think the way to go about it is you do have a specific allocation of time. The best way, whatever time you have, if you divide it up well, if you manage it well, then there's no reason why you can't effectively fulfill a position and discharge your duties. So I've managed to do that with the projects I currently have. I managed to do that last year with the projects I had last year and managed to fulfill my role as the first Equal Opportunities Officer of the JCR as well. So I think I would be easily able to do the same for JCR presidency.
I'm an English literature student and therefore we don't have a vast amount of lectures within a week. But I do also actually row for the college. I'm in NW2 boat. And even though that involves a lot of early mornings and we do erg training at night at the boat club, I still have an awful amount of time at my disposal in which I could definitely easily sort of manage to fit in a role such as JCR presidency as well as my essay commitments and my commitments with rowing. It isn't exactly, I find organising my time quite almost an easy thing to do because that's how I like to run my day. So fitting in a role such as this would be relatively simple for me to do.
I agree a lot with Laura, so I row as well, and that's really the largest commitment of my time. And then I know that JCR president, I'd obviously prioritise the role, and I don't think that I'd have any problem in like shifting around schedule for rowing so that I could definitely fit in this job.
Great, who's next?
So I was in the JCR this year, and I think that as president it's quite important to know kind of how the JCR works as a body, and like you're basically in charge of the whole administration of the JCR itself as a committee, and not kind of necessarily just your own individual role. And so kind of from an arm, how would your experience this year on the JCR, how do you think that's going to help you in terms of running?
I think perhaps we should say, how has your experience that all three of you have had so far help you to perform that? And I think this time maybe we'll start from Rachel and then go back that way.
So I think that because I'm a first year here, it's quite good for fresh blood to be inside the JCR, because I think that it means it's easier to implement changes. It's not like we're stuck in the same annual setup. So I'd be very open to kind of changing the JCR if I feel that it's not running properly. But then I'd say that regular meetings are really the most important thing to do between the JCR committee, and obviously I'd speak to the previous president and find out what he kind of found to be most useful with the JCR and organisational skills, that kind of thing.
Yeah, similar points to Rachel, but I'd also sort of get the JCR to become a really quite tight group and a tight family. So obviously there's weekly meetings, so spending time with each other as a group, maybe just outside of the role as JCR, just getting to know each other and becoming that sort of cohesive unit that we can put forward to the students and they will become a group of people that the students feel are really quite accessible to go and speak to if we need help, or just friendly faces around college. We're not just all separate individuals coming together once a week to discuss bigger matters. We're actually a group of friends and quite a cohesive unit in terms of working together.
I think so. What Laura just said is really important for the JCR, because this year's JCR has been a really close group of friends, and to a very large extent we've sort of been great friends with each other. So I think what's really important for a JCR is for us all to gel together really well. But that does mean having regular meetings. That does mean getting everything done which needs to be done, not just sitting around and just chatting all the time. We need to do that as well to gel, but we also need to get things done. But I think also what's really important for everyone in the JCR is to actually engage not only with the student body, but also to engage with the staff here, because that's how things are really done. So you go and talk face to face with people in different departments of the college, and that's when you get their acceptance, and that's when you get things done from there. So I think I would encourage that in the JCR, which I would end up running. I would encourage regular sort of meetings in sort of the JCR, good organisation, good time management, and sort of meeting deadlines as they're set, which I think are really important alongside having fun.
All three of you mentioned ENTs in some capacity. A problem that I think we've had this year is that we've tried to really implement it as like John's is a place that you can come and actually have a party and it'll be fun. But our problem has been getting people on board with that idea and yeah, just getting everyone engaged with that, which is a problem that I guess would go over into just other things about student engagement. So how, do you have any specific ways that you would tackle that, whether it's in relation to ENTs or otherwise?
Should we start in the middle?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, I mean, it's been great this year in terms of, as being a fresher and getting to know about the events that are going on. There's been really great publicity in terms of like Facebook, and there's the weekly emails that we get through and stuff like that. But I'd sort of, if I was JCR president, I'd work to boost that even more. So maybe become a sort of bigger Facebook presence in terms of the JCR committee, and maybe actually go and sort of visit people in and around public spaces in the college. I mean, the library isn't exactly the best place because it's supposed to be very quiet, but I mean, still, you could go to the bar and the buttery during the week and just sort of increase the presence of the JCR amongst the student body to get the idea of ENTs and what's going on a week-to-week basis run by the JCR, just get it out there a bit more and get people really sort of excited about ending their week at a St John's ENTs instead of going to a different college or going out into Cambridge as a town itself.
Rachel?
Okay, so I think the biggest problem we have with our ENTs right now is publicity. So I think it's fine for St John's students to find out about the ENTs, but the problem is that other colleges aren't really hearing about them that much. So what we could do is select from each year group a representative from each subject, and they could maybe do lecture shout-outs to highlight the idea that there is an event at St John's, or maybe they could just like spread their friends. But I think the fact that like the idea of having a subject representative for the ENTs, that would be a really good idea, and then that could really boost publicity within the whole university, so not just St John's, and that's how we could make our ENTs a much bigger deal.
Right, so I think if we are to achieve like clear ENT status, it's going to happen with time. So that means tackling a number of different factors. It means getting extra publicity. It also means improving our ENTs to the level where everyone really wants to come to our ENTs. So let's try and see what clear ENTs has got, which we don't have, and try and implement that too. As for publicity, there are lots of ways which we can do this. A greater Facebook presence, which extends beyond St. John's, which is, I think, really necessary. And also through people. So I think getting the word spread through people is a lot more effective than just Facebook. So for example, the international rep in the Equal Opportunities Committee actually sort of organised lots of swaps with different colleges. And what she managed to do was she managed to convince them to come to St. John's ENTs. That's one of the ways where we can convince people to come to St. John's ENTs and actually experience it for themselves and see how good it is. So telling people that, look, there's an opportunity available in St. John's. So the minute you finish formal with, let's say, a swap with different sports teams, with different subject groups, with whichever college, you bring them to St. John's ENTs, and that's how like the word's going to spread for St. John's ENTs and make it better. As for the quality, we've had fantastic acts performing in the past two JCR-led ENTs. Let's continue that quality. Let's have more bands from university-wide. Let's source more DJs, and let's make the ENTs a better sort of something which everyone wants to come to.
Good, thank you. Next question. Anyone over on the side got any questions?
So some of you mentioned for publicity emails. There's quite a big problem. Whenever I talk to people, they keep saying that they don't quite read the emails received from the publicity officer. How do you plan on making people be more aware about the events organized in John's and the activities, and for people actually to read the emails sent by the publicity officer?
Right. So that's actually a really tricky question. So getting people to read emails is not the easiest thing. But what if we engage them in a greater degree with Facebook, in a greater degree with Twitter and social media? I think that's something which would engage them a lot more. So the JCR Facebook account has been a lot more active this year than it has been in the past years. So it's reached a lot more people and generated more interest in the emails themselves. A similar strategy is being employed by student services who now have their own Facebook accounts. So instead of us going to their website, which almost, well, at least I don't do that often, I now get notifications about what's the latest deadline straight to my Facebook page. So I think getting that done and maybe looking at other sort of avenues where we can communicate more effectively, whether it's giant posters around the college which can alert people to what's happening. So not just in the JCR, not just outside of Buttery, but in more sort of visible places. That's something which we can maybe consider and talk out with the administration and see if we can implement.
Similarly, as JCR President, I would definitely boost the Facebook presence of the JCR in terms of getting the idea of ENTS and what's going on throughout the week and what the JCR is organising. I really get it out there via Facebook, because that seems to be something that pretty much everybody uses now, and it's a medium of communication that everybody has in common. But also, I mean, within my own subject, English literature, we get, occasionally English lit students will get a text from the English faculty library, actually a physical text message to our phone that alerts us of maybe there's tea at 3 with Libby, who's one of the library staff, and it's sort of it's like a welfare thing. But we could maybe implement that within John's, so there's sort of a mass text message go out, because not everybody checks Facebook every day, people don't have it on their phones all the time. And sometimes Facebook just doesn't load during the day when you're out and about, but a text message is almost a better medium in which to get to people, and I just thought it's a really good idea that the English faculty had, and it could work in a really good way in a community such as the college.
So I know that during Freshers Week there was a Google Calendar for JCR run events, so if we could continue that throughout the whole year, where it kind of gets uploaded straight to someone's phone, then I think that's probably the best way to find out what's going on, because I know that people mainly organise their time through their phones. So if we don't do the Google Calendar idea, then other ideas would be, let's say, to have a comprehensive what's on sheet. So that's kind of what's included in the email, but we could either put it in pigeonholes, put it up in the bar, or on the notice board outside the Buttery, so it's kind of something that you walk by every day and you can just check it as you go do your day-to-day routine. And so that's how people would become aware of what's going on in the college.
That's great. Any more questions from anyone? Anyone ever thinking about asking a question? So I suppose with any role really that you have, it's great at the start when you're also enthusiasm and things you like to do, and sometimes you find that various things can't happen for various reasons, or you try them and it doesn't necessarily work. But what's the one thing that if you were president you'd say you'd like to have done by this time next year? I will start this end again.
So I think that if there was one thing that I definitely would want to become a regular implementation, it would be student forums. So it would be a regular meeting of anyone from the college who ever wants to join, maybe in the JCR or something, maybe either once a term or more regularly, maybe twice a term or once every 2 weeks or something like that, where you can suggest ideas, say what you're not happy with in the college, suggest changes, and even just monitor our updates. We can tell you what we're doing as a JCR committee, so that you know that we're actually representing you as best as we can. Yeah.
JCR, if I was president, the one thing I'd like to see by sort of this time next year would be that John's ENTS had a name for itself university-wide. When freshers came in September, October, and they started to learn about where you go and where you go out for a night out or a good night out, they should know the name St John's ENTS. It should be out there as the place you just have to go, and that would be a dream come true for the college and for the student body at St John's as well as university-wide.
I think there are lots of things I really want to get done, but if I was to pick the most important one, it would be to get all of you to talk back to us. So that means listening to what you want and getting that done. That's really important to me. And so I think having the website, having a comment section which directly gives us all your complaints, all your suggestions is really important, and I want that running as soon as possible so that everyone can start contributing to how this college is run. We can change lots of things, we can make things better, but we need you ultimately to help us.
If you weren't elected JCR President, is there another position you would consider running for? Could you start in the middle?
Yes, definitely. I go for probably Access, although publicity does appeal to me as well. But Access, it's really great. I mean, when I first started here 7 weeks ago, the JCR were brilliant in terms of just getting in touch with freshers and getting to know you and putting their faces out there as the people you know when you first come to St John's. And I think it's just great because it makes you sort of feel a little bit more chilled and relaxed amidst the hype and the terrifying prospect of having to move to university for the first time. So access would be, I think, it would be a really great thing to get involved in.
I'd probably run for publicity because I know that there's a lot of liaising with the rest of the JCR committee if you're in publicity. So you could help with the ENTs, you could help with advertising for the student services, welfare, things like that. And so I think that's the closest role to president, as in terms of making sure that everyone works cohesively together and is very well gelled together.
If I do, I would probably run for secretary. I think sort of the reasoning behind this is not only does that allow you to do sort of the administrative side of work within the JCR, so minutes, going to KUSU meetings and figuring out how on a university-wide level we can make a change, but also it gives you, because of sort of the role itself, it allows you to help out with other roles as well, which is, I think, would for me be the closest thing to being president if I'm not elected. So helping other roles out, performing my own duties, and I think that would be something I'd be interested in.
Excellent. Anyone who's not spoken yet who would like to speak? Yes.
What are your policies on mixed room sharing in the second and third years?
Would it be helpful to have a note of clarification here? At the moment, second and third years do choose to live in bundle sets. When the time comes to apply, the current rule is that they can only apply with another student who is of the same gender as themselves. And it's an issue which sort of various JCRs in the past have tried to engage with this being one of them. That's just to clarify things at the moment. I think we're back to the Laura.
Should I do this one first? Just so I think, because this would help provide some sort of clarification about what the issue also is. So for several sort of years, we've been trying to get second and third years to have mixed sharing amongst them. So essentially, why the administration, so basically fellows and tutors were against this, was because people who were in a relationship would often go into these rooms, and midway into the year they would break up, never want to see each other again, and basically want to move out of the room, which is obviously problematic for the college. The problem is this policy has problems in itself. So it doesn't recognize the fact that you can not be in a relationship and still want to, move in with another person who may be of an opposite gender. It does not recognize the rights of LGBT, like completely ignoring them within its framework. So I think this does need to change, and so we do have a working paper by Rob, the current JCR president. So what I intend to do with this is continue with the working paper, get a trial for mixed sharing on, because it's really important that we get a trial, a feel of what's going to happen. And if that's successful, on evidence-based action, which is I think really important for today, to have evidence to support your action, we want to go through with this, so that by the end of if I get elected as JCR president, by the end of my term, not only have we had a successful sort of sharing scheme set up, but that I can be confident of the fact that when the new JCR president takes over, we will have legislation or something in place which allows mixed sharing.
Okay. Whilst I understand where the college is coming from in terms of their rules and regulations they have towards mixed sharing in the second year, I think there definitely should be an appeals process that people can go through, that people can sort of, they can maybe write a statement or declaration of why they should be allowed to share. And they should be able to go to a group of the fellows, a group of the staff here at John's, as well as the JCR committee, and put forward their argument for being able to share. They shouldn't just be told no outright, because that's not entirely fair, and it does ignore the sort of the needs and the changing times of today. So therefore, I would try as JCR president to implement that appeals process to make it a little bit more fair, so that the students don't feel as if they don't have a voice in terms of how they have to live and how they should live in their second year, because ultimately this is our college as well, and we should be able to define it by our own parameters, not just how the college maybe thinks we should.
So as JCR president, I think the main responsibility would be to represent the wants and the needs of the whole student body. So regardless of my opinion towards mixed sharing, which I'm actually pro mixed sharing, I think that I would represent your opinion no matter what happens, like regardless of mine. So if the college as a whole wants to have mixed gender sharing in second and third year, then that's what I'd fight for, that's what I'd try to suggest to the staff and fellows at the college, and I'd really fight for that.
Thank you, it's an interesting point, Sarah. Good question as well. I'm conscious that some people haven't spoken yet, and I want to make sure that they can if they want to.
Can I say something related maybe to that?
If there's a question, then
Yes, the
that's
question,
fine.
yeah. So as you said, this is a process that has been kind of in the works for a long time.
About 30 years.
Yeah, we tried it last year, everyone got really on board with it. Every time we have something called an open meeting, where the JCR just gathers in here and then anyone can come and put forward a motion. So everyone got really on board with that, and it's happened many times in the past. But the kind of biggest hindrance is college bureaucracy and Cambridge bureaucracy. So do you have any experience with trying to deal with higher ups, I guess, who wouldn't listen to you or put a process in motion that you could apply to this or any other similar situation?
I think it's Laura's turn to go first. Is that right, Josh?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so when I was at secondary school, I took an active part during my sixth form years, in particular in engaging with a lot of the teachers and the teaching staff and the governors in particular in terms of things that sixth formers in particular wanted. I wasn't a senior student at the school, but I worked with the senior students quite a lot because we're all quite a tight group of friends, and we all approached the governors and our heads of sixth form and our sort of senior members of staff in terms of if we wanted something doing or something changing. Obviously it's a bit different now we're at college, it's a totally different hierarchy system, and it's a little more intimidating, I'm not going to lie, but I mean it's basically the same principle. There is power in numbers and power in the strength of the argument put forward. So simply I would just approach the hierarchy of the college and just really go for it and really put forward an argument. I mean, if it's been tried for many years before now, it can't hurt to keep going, try another year. I mean, they've got to say yes sometime, you'd hope.
Thank you. I think we'll go to Rachel next.
Okay, so I was part of our school council for several years back in secondary school, so I do know that it's often very difficult to get changes implemented. In maybe 5 years at school, all we managed to do was get plastic water cups for the water fountains. But I do know that it's often very bureaucratic. However, what I would do to try to counter that is really find out why in particular they don't want to implement a policy or a change. So for example, last year our Leavers celebrations were cancelled because they thought that we would take the opportunity to knock up the school. So I spoke to the head teacher, I spoke to all of the heads of staff and found out exactly why they were afraid of it. And what we did is we made a counter-argument to every argument they used against us. So for example, health and safety, we made sure that we got a company that had an insurance policy for all the students, things like that. So we had a big like bouncy castle for the whole year, it was really nice. But basically, what I would do as JCR president is make sure that I actually understand every detail of every argument that they would propose against any change that we'd want to do, and then find a good counter-argument for each of those so that we could possibly convince them that we do need to make some changes.
Great. I think as what I've found, so I've been the head of my school, the head of the student body of my school. Equally, I've tried implementing projects in the healthcare system of Pakistan, which isn't the easiest red tape to get across. And what I've found is the way to tackle bureaucracy of any kind is to engage them. So find out what's the common ground with you, and find a situation which benefits both sides. So if you can find a situation which is beneficial to both or provides significant evidence that it's going to be beneficial, it's something which both parties are going to be interested in. But also what's really important is to go talk individually to each of the people involved in this, strike a good reputation with them, make a great reputation with them, and once they trust you, once they appreciate the fact that you really want to get things done, that's when they'll start helping you themselves to get things done. So I think finding a common ground is really important, engaging them is really important, and I think that's how something as complex as room sharing, which hasn't been changed over 30 years, can be done.
There's good answers, thank you, and a very good question. And I suppose a related one is that sort of being the president or any officer of the JCR, it often involves talking to people within the college, the fellows, the staff who do various things, and also almost networking with other JCR presidents at events at KUSU or otherwise. Is that something you feel comfortable doing and something you've got experience of doing? Sort of interacting with a wide range of people to sort of find out how things work and how you can get things done. And I think probably Rachel's tried to go first this time.
Yeah, I think I'd be very comfortable communicating with other JCR presidents. I think idea sharing is possibly one of the best ways to make the college a better place. So I don't think that if we have a good idea, we shouldn't really just exclusively keep it to John's, or if maybe another college has a really good idea, they shouldn't just keep it to their own college. We all need to share these good ideas and help each other out so that the whole university becomes a better place, not just each college individually. It's not a competition. We all need to work together to make the university a better place. So I'd definitely be very comfortable networking with other JCR presidents so that we can all do better for each other, because it's all about teamwork.
Yeah, if you see me around college, I may come across as quite quiet and quite reserved, but when needs be, I do have quite a mouth on me, and I'm very confident around speaking to anybody, because I mean you can't make make a voice for yourself. You can't make a voice for anybody unless you have one yourself. So you have to go out there and put yourself out there and be confident, engaging with all different types of people, no matter if they are sort of the hierarchy of the college or they are just your fellow students. You've really got to put yourself out there, and I'd be proud to represent John's in terms of that, because I love the college and I feel really, really settled here, and that would give me almost the confidence to go to different colleges and go on a university level and be able to really put across the views of John's and the things that John's wants.
I think networking is absolutely essential. So if another college rep gets a really good idea, it's really important that if it's good enough and if everyone agrees upon it, we implement it in John's to make John's better. This is something which I have sort of engaged in. So we've had people from different colleges, different offices, sending emails to me about mental health, about LGBT issues, and we have debated some of these issues within the previous JCR meetings, and we have reached some conclusions about what we want to do. And a lot of what I'm running on includes points which are taken from JCR reps from other colleges, because I think they're fantastic points to have. And I really think implementation of these points could help John's a lot. So yes, absolutely, going to KUSU meetings, talking with other JCR presidents is a really important thing to do, to find out what are great things which we can implement.